Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Inside Africa, your premium channel that brings you groundbreaking updates in Africa. Burkina Faso President Captain Ibrahim Traoré has responded fiercely to French President Emmanuel Macron for saying that Sahel countries were ungrateful for the role French played in fighting jihadist insurgencies. Before we show you Captain Traoré's response, first of all watch what the French president said, which has triggered magnitude of controversies across African nations, and African leaders are not taking it lightly.
We had a relationship based on security. On one hand, our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right to do so. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay. It'll come in time. Ungratefulness, I know all too well, is a disease that is not transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African heads of state who have not had the courage, in the face of public opinion, to hold that view. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
And in response to this, many African leaders, such as Chad's Foreign Minister Mr. Abdourahmane Koulibaly, said Macron's comments has revealed his contempt for Africa. Also, Senegal Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko said France has in the past contributed in destabilizing certain African countries, such as Libya, which has disastrous consequences for the region's security. Now Chad, Senegal, and Ivory Coast have recently ended security agreements with France, while Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger Republic has told French troops to leave their land. Now watch Captain Traoré's response to French authority.
Quand je prends dernièrement les propos de Emmanuel Macron,
when I recently consider Emmanuel Macron's remarks about Africa, every conscious African should therefore quickly understand everything he has told us and what it signifies. General Chiani recently spoke of a change in tactics or strategies of the French forces in Africa. I think he has come to confirm it. It is about dissolving and keeping a core presence, and Emmanuel Macron said it so well that we can only thank him for this sincerity, even if some wanted to pull the wool over the eyes of their population. But reality eventually catches up with them too. They will not leave certain countries. They have simply dissolved the structure. You will no longer see them in bases, but in embassies, they will be there.
Ils vont constituer des sociétés de sécurité.
They will form security companies to secure their companies that exist in these countries. But the soldiers will be there. But you will no longer see them in uniform gathered in bases. That's all it means. They will reorganize, but will be there. He spoke of politeness towards certain heads of state by giving them the priority of announcing the break or the departure of French forces. This matters little to us, one might say. But all we know is that if you want to break with these imperialist forces, it's simple. You denounce the agreements. Everything starts there. I think the example of Chad in any case is palpable. They started by denouncing the agreements. Otherwise, if the agreements are not denounced, just saying that the bases are leaving, we have done nothing, because the problem lies in the colonial defense agreements that have been signed since independence. The most dangerous thing is not what you see in the bases. The most dangerous thing is the military advisors. Military advisors exist in all these countries. They also existed in Burkina until 2022, until we took responsibility. And who are these military advisors? They are the ones who are supposed to implement France's policy here. They must work to make our armies very weak, so that France can always have the argument of existing here under the pretext of comparing us. They had succeeded. Our sentinels were thus standing guard with sticks. That is what France wants from our armies. When we reach this stage, we have no choice but to want them to come and settle. But the Burkinabe army managed at one point to get rid of the military advisors. Unfortunately, I think that in 2019, after the operation in Tapoa, where these French saw that the Burkinabe army still had the capacity to react to terrorism, they called the chiefs of staff in France. They instructed them to reinstate the military advisors throughout the structure. Well, he did not accept, but upon returning to the country, the politicians instructed him to accept the military advisors, and that is where the military advisors returned to the Burkinabe army in 2019, with all the consequences that we know. The army was disappearing in the years 2020 to 2021, and moreover, this is the moment when many soldiers had to desert because there was no more hope. We were collapsing. That's a little how they work at the general staff of the armies, in all the army general staffs, in the schools. It is they who are supposed to dictate the policy of our army. It is they who tell us how many to recruit, when to recruit, and what to do with them. They are in the schools to tell us how to train them, and so on. As long as these military advisors are there, you are not independent. Your army will only have the appearance of an army that will be there doing parades, circus acts. But when the war comes, you will realize that the parade is one thing, but the war is another thing. It is necessary to break the agreements. It is the only way to have an independent army and build itself to be strong. But many people do not understand it, perhaps. And even with these agreements, France chooses officer cadets in our states to train them. This through these same agreements. But in reality, these officers who go to train for the most part for France, they come to serve the French state in their country. They do not come to serve their country. They train them so that they come to serve the interests of the French state. I offer as proof. When we revolted, many officers in Burkina who were trained in France were immediately contacted to tell them that it was time to take action because you were trained for that, to serve the interests of France. Most of these officers reported this to us. We took note and we continue to monitor. When an officer trained in France arrives in his country, and unfortunately, either by accident or on the battlefield in France, there is a night of tribute to the dead in the army, as everywhere else. At the night of tribute to the dead, the name of the officer in question is cited, and it is said died for France. They do not train them to serve their country. They train them to serve their state. And in many African states, there are many of these officers. How many are patriots? God only knows. It is a lesson that Emmanuel Macron gave again to African heads of state to catch up and to be able to truly lead this struggle against imperialism. But in addition to that, he also insulted all Africans in his remarks. There is a part that caught my attention where he spoke of ingratitude, and that ingratitude is a disease not transmissible to humans. He is human, our ingratitude is not transmissible to him. That's how this gentleman sees Africa, sees Africans. We are not humans in his eyes. Perhaps it is he who is not human. He does not put himself in the class of humans, but well him. I think that if he did not think about it, and he prays every morning when he wakes up, he should pray to the Africans, because it is thanks to our ancestors that a France exists today. He should pray to us. In his eyes, we must not be humans. We are more than humans. These are very strong messages that he conveys. I pity the French people. But still, he is good for Africa, a necessary evil for us. Those who want to awaken. Those who do not want to awaken. As we say, one cannot awaken someone who is not sleeping. Africans must awaken. We must work to be independent, at least so that our people know happiness. And the struggle against imperialism is that. It is necessary to decolonize mentalities, to take into account all this data, because the world gives us so many examples to see. For them, there is no morality. They can call you a terrorist today, but tomorrow you are a hero by their simple word. They decide what they do. They speak of democracy, but they themselves carry out constitutional coup d'etat among themselves. They speak of human rights, but they decimate populations elsewhere. The African must awaken. Africa must awaken. And the struggle against imperialism is permanent. I invite you to incorporate this struggle, to work so that we are truly independent, that we are self-sufficient, and that we can develop, know happiness, what our people aspire to. Thank you. I wish you a very good day, a very good week, and a very good year, and that at the end of this year, 2025, In retrospect, we should tell ourselves that we have brought a great plus to our nation. Thank you very much to all. May God bless you and may God protect our dear homeland, the homeland or death, we shall overcome.
Did you find this interesting? If yes, then smash the like and subscription button and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks for watching from Inside Africa.